So I'm starting the review to look at these two conference semifinal game a little bit later than anticipated because it turns out I actually had to work a little bit later since we were a little bit short of staff at my workplace and I had to kind of cover for someone. So I didn't actually get off work until about 6:30, and then of course I also had to go out to eat, and not to mention also have to of course watch two of these games, which it actually took 3.5 hours to do so because one of the games did go to extra time, and that of course is the game I will talk about next in my next video because as you guys remember in the playoffs, pretty much for these games I will basically do individual video talking about each of these one. And we start off with the first game of the doubleheader between Sporting KC and Real Salt Lake, and RSL did it again. They pull off another stunning upset in this game against Sporting KC, and the Cinderella run of their playoff is now continuing into the Western Conference Final. And if you would have told me at the beginning of the season that RSL would make it to the conference final, especially with the turmoil that is going on with the club, I would say you'd be absolutely out of your mind. In fact, a couple of weeks ago when they lost 3-0 against the Portland Timbers and it looked like their playoff hope was pretty much gone, if you would have told me that they would actually make it to the Western Conference Final, I would also say that you're crazy. But here we are. RSL is in the Western Conference Final going to face the Portland Timbers at Providence Park. And what's interesting about this game is that unlike the game where they pull off that stunning upset against the Seattle Sounders, this was not a fluke. This was not a game where RSL just kind of hold on for 90 minutes and maybe get a smash and grab goal late in. I mean, they did get a late goal in this one, but it was not in any ways a smash and grab. And in many ways, I would say that RSL was actually the better team in this one. Like, they really shut down this Sporting KC attack for majority of the game, and they also kind of took their chances when they have to do. And in other words, they play a perfect role game in this one against Sporting KC. Now, for Sporting KC coming into this game, the good news is they had Alan Pulido back in the starting 11, though I thought he was really ineffective in this game, which, that was kind of the case for most of the Sporting KC attacker, while Rusnak, of course, remains out in this game to COVID. But in the first half, just 2 minutes into this game, it looked like maybe there is a sense that RSL was going to waste some time because 2 minutes in, Ochoa looked like he was already doing the same thing he did in that game against Seattle, and that of course is just time waste, and that was followed by a chorus of boos. I mean, if you haven't get the memo yet that David Ochoa is basically kind of like the villain of MLS. Like it takes a lot to get booed by the fans straight away and again, but you know how David Ochoa has really embraced and kind of arrived in that villain role when now fans are literally booing him even before he even did anything bad to it. Because usually when a fan booed the opposition player, it's usually if the opposition player did something dirty. But if you get kind of that reputation of being kind of that player that is kind of like a villain, yeah, you of course really made it. But in some way, I also talk about this in the preview. You can boo Ochoa or you like. This is the role he loves to enjoy. Like he even said, he embraced of being the villain, and those boos that it rings down from the crowd, he pretty almost like he enjoyed it, and it just gives him more energy to kind of time waste and do the shithousery that he is always known during this playoff run. But despite the fact that early on it looked like maybe RSL was gonna bunker, they did not do that. I thought RSL was kind of in control early, and they definitely had more of the possession. Though I was also thinking that maybe this is by design because of the way that Peter Vermees, knowing the fact that he was very successful in that game against the Whitecaps, of them sitting back and kind of trying to counter, almost taking a page out of Giovanni Savarese and the Portland Timbers. He thought he can do the same thing in this game against RSL, and it's not a bad strategy considering the fact that if you give the ball to RSL and you let them control possession, that means that they also would expose them at the back. And it looked like maybe, even though I thought RSL did a good job in control of this game, I didn't really like the fact that, yeah, they are definitely asking for themselves to get exposed by not going into that bunker. But at the same time, you can also argue that, they kind of had to play out. They can't just play the same style that they did against the Seattle Sounders. But in the 8th minute, the first shot of the game came with Polito hit one straight to Ochoa on the free kick. That was really the only opportunity that Alan Polito has in this game, and you just kind of get a sense that he is still not 100% healthy. Like, I know he, of course, started in the game, and that he was also supposed to come off the bench in the last game, but never did because, Sporting KC was basically cruising against the Vancouver Whitecaps. But in this game, you can definitely sense that he is still not 100% fit, and he of course did get subbed out in the second half. They did mention the fact that there was the problem with the Sun with Tim Melia. Yeah, will need to face. I mean, by the way, this is also the same crew that of course called that game between Minnesota versus Sporting KC, and there's just something about John Champ being always talk about the Sun, or at least maybe I would also add Taylor Twellman talk about how the Suns always kind of is a factor, which again I'm getting to a point where it's kind of weird because if that's the case, then I'm pretty sure every broadcast should mention it whenever it's a day game. So yeah, I don't know why they kind of had to mention it again. Although that being said, the Sun was really a bit of an issue, knowing the fact that this was a late afternoon game, and I guess maybe Sporting KC did not win the coin toss. So Tim Melia, of course, unfortunately get the bad part of the field where he has to face the Sun, and there was a couple times that he definitely looked like he was trouble, though I don't think he had as much trouble as he had in that game against Minnesota, where it was pretty clear that in that game he really had problem battling the Sun. But in the 15th minute, Ruiz did hit one straight to Melia. This actually, I don't think that was the first shot that RSL has. I believe they had one earlier that I forgot to register, and I probably should have put it on the board because that's literally their first shot in the playoffs after they basically registered a goose egg in terms of the shots total in that game against the Seattle Sounders. But I think this was also the first shot on goal that RSL also had in this entire playoffs. But of course, Melia was not trouble with it. It was almost like catching practice. But in the 20th minute, there was a shout for a penalty for RSL, and especially from Rubio Rubin, as he felt like he was bumped in the box. I thought that was a good no call. I don't think there was really enough contact, and in anything, I think Rubin kind of gone down on the ground a little bit too easily to kind of claim that was going to be a penalty. But nevertheless, there was a penalty that was given to Sporting KC, and I forgot to write why this was a penalty for Sporting KC. I think it was oh god, if I remember from my notes, I think it was Kinda, the one that of course was brought down by Herrera in the box. It was a really clumsy challenge by Aaron Herrera to give away the penalty, which Johnny Russell was able to step up to put away that penalty, and Sporting KC was leading 1-0. And up to that point, I thought RSL was the better team, and I thought with that goal, not only the fact that I talked about in the preview, the key for Sporting KC in this game is to get an early goal, and they did exactly that. But with the way that RSL was kind of in control, and then they let in a goal that they probably wouldn't allow if it wasn't for some poor defending, and especially on Aaron Herrera's part. I thought this was over for RSL. I didn't think they had the tenacity of coming back into this game, and I expect this is when Sporting KC really started to rip apart this RSL team. But that being said, RSL again, a lot of that reason why I said that is that they need to, of course, have to push, which means that they kind of expose them at the back, which plays right into Sporting KC hand. But instead of me thinking that Sporting KC can quickly get that second or third goal, they kind of look flat on the attack and look kind of predictable, where there was time where they did kind of cause some trouble to that RSL defense, but not in a way where Ochoa really need to do much to, of course, prevent a goal going in. But that being said, in the 45th minute, Voltaire did put it wide from close range as we head to halftime, with Sporting KC leading 1-0 in this game. So we go to the second half, and in the second half, they did announce the attendance right before the second half whistle was blown, that the attendance was actually 21,460 fans, which is actually the second biggest crowd at Children's Mercy Park. The biggest crowd, of course, will always be that 2013 MLS Cup final, which, ironically, that was also a game when Sporting KC faced against Real Salt Lake, and Sporting KC, of course, won that final in a penalty kick shootout. Kina then had a free kick that was actually deflected and actually struck the post, and then he had another opportunity where he had a header that goes wide from the corner. I think this was actually right after the sequence of play. I thought Gotti Kina was probably the only player that I would say on that Sporting KC attack that really kind of was trying to get a goal, because again, this Sporting KC attack, they were looking very, very flat throughout this entire part of this game. But there was no doubt that despite that, I did put on the notes that said it looked like SKC was pushing early for a second goal and looking to try to kill this game off. But then I think around the 58th minute, this is when the game changing moment happened, when RSL decided to bring Julio and Miram into the game. And not much of just Miram coming into this game, but Anderson Julio coming into this game completely changed how this one was, because Julio, in that game against the Sounders, I was kind of surprised that when he came off the bench, I was kind of surprised he wasn't really going at that Sounders attack. I think there was actually one time where he did try to go on that Sounders attack, and he kind of had some success in terms of doing so, which kind of makes me wonder why he decided not to do that more often. Well, he definitely did it more often and took some more risks in this game, and boy, did that pay off with the way that he was really causing a lot of trouble in terms of that SKC backline. Krylak then hits one straight to Tim Melia in the 65th minute before Glad actually redirect a Julio shot that goes wide. I don't think that one was actually going to be off target, so I think that's why Justin Glad trying to redirect that one. Almost kind of similar to what the winning goal that they score against Sporting KC on decision day, where I think it was just Demirim, the one that did like a bicycle kick kind of assist, and Demir Krylak basically assist that for the winning goal. That is kind of the reason why RSL isn't the playoffs in the first place. And also, let's not talk about what happened a couple of minutes before that, because if I talk about a couple of minutes before that, that's when we get to kind of the negative part of not giving RSL credit with the controversial call that happened in the game. But nevertheless, that was kind of similar to that, with that sequence where Glad was trying to redirect that toward goal, but unfortunately it did not work out this time like it did on decision day. But there was no doubt that RSL was looking to press to try to get the equalizer, and they got the equalizer in the 71st minute. And who else? It's Anderson Julio scoring from Brody to tie the game out at one apiece. There was no doubt that completely stunned the Children's Mercies Park crowd, which, I mean, I guess they're kind of stunned, but at the same time, I think they were kind of expecting with the way that Sporting KC kind of just stopped playing. Like, RSL was really growing into the game, and I know that they with them growing into the game, that also means that they might get exposed at the back. It didn't look like that way with the way that SKC really just kind of almost like they thought that 1-0 was going to be enough to win this game, and RSL basically proved that it isn't going to be the case. But just 4 minutes later, Julio had another chance to score his second goal and really turn this game on its head, but he missed wide from close range. But there was no doubt that RSL had all the momentum in this game. And Children's Mercy Park, not only the fact that they were definitely quiet in this game, but the fans in that stadium, they were getting nervous, because they know that RSL is a team that is the kings in terms of scoring late goals. In fact, they mentioned that RSL have scored 19 goals in the last 15 minutes, which is the most in MLS. Now, granted, they also mentioned the fact that they also concede a lot of goals late in the game. They concede 13 goals, but that is a lot of goals that they, of course, score in the last 15 minutes. And you just kind of knew that with how lethal they are in the last 15 minutes of this game, that looked like they were probably going to get that winner. But that being said, as the time winds down, Sporting KC eventually kind of did wake up a little bit. Though, that being said, same was with RSL, where both teams was kind of gunning for the winning goal, and it looked like this was maybe going to head to extra time until in the first minute of stoppage time. And by the way, this is also something that's been a storyline in the playoffs. We have seen a lot of late goals this season in the playoffs, and I know there are also some people say that this hasn't been a great playoffs with some of the predictable reserve. But one thing I will say that would make this playoffs great is that there's been some late drama, and we had late drama once again in this game, and it's RSL, the one that got the late drama in their favor. as Bobby Wood, a guy that hasn't really been featured for this team a lot, a guy that they bought in the summer transfer window thinking that he's the main goal scorer for this team, and really that hasn't kind of worked out. But he came off the bench in this game and he scored from Justin Merrim, and I actually take back what I said about Justin Merrim not being one of those influence sub, because he actually got on the assist chart late in this game, and I actually didn't realize it until now, which that's kind of all on my part. But yeah, those two subs, like I said, really changed the game, because those two subs really was the one of the big, if not the biggest reason why RSL was able to come back into this game. But yeah, that of course made it 2-1 in this game. There was also like 2 minutes of stoppage time coming into this game, so there was literally no time for Sporting KC to mount any comeback. That was literally the dagger for RSL and the winning goal for them to move on to the conference final. And yeah, in the end, of course, RSL was able to win 2-1 against Sporting KC, and as much as you might think that this is kind of a smash and grab, it's not. When you look at the stats, it proves that way, with RSL having more shots in this game, 11 compared to just 5 that Sporting KC had. 5 shots on goal for the 2 that Sporting KC had. 5 shots off target for the 1 that Sporting KC had. 2 shots that was blocked for the 1 that RSL has. Possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Sporting KC had. And in the word of their famous anthem that RSL always sing before the beginning of the game. I mean, I always love that anthem that RSL, of course, sing. It's certainly one of the more underrated team anthem that I've heard. But they're definitely living to their team anthem, the fact that they really believe that they can do it. And I really think when you look at this team, I think this is probably the best Cinderella story we had since the Colorado Rapids back in 2010 when they went MLS Cup. Because usually, we have got some good Cinderella story, but usually that Cinderella story kind of struck midnight, probably around the conference final. For RSL, it doesn't seem like it's striking midnight anytime soon. And now I really think that their path to MLS Cup, yes, they do have to go to Portland, and Portland is a team that they have not done well this season, mainly because the Timbers is a team that knows how to play against this RSL team and has really exposed this RSL team, especially with their lethal counterattack. But that's also a Timbers team that's not going to have Sebastian Blanco and potentially Darren Asprilla in that game. And knowing the fact that RSL has proved a lot of doubters wrong and have really stifled against some of the best attack in the league, I won't be surprised. They might cause an upset against the Portland Timbers, and I won't be surprised whatsoever if they actually make it to MLS Cup. And if they do make it to MLS Cup, boy, what a story this would be. And that, like I said, this team really kind of reminds me a little bit of that 2010 Colorado Rapids team, where nobody thought that Rapids team was going to do anything. And that was also a team that was the lowest seed in the Western Conference, and they go all the way to MLS Cup before even winning the whole competition. And for RSL, it just feels like it's getting to a point with how much they have done this playoffs and pulling off miracle win. I mean, some people will say that eventually that's going to come in. I don't want to. Like, I want the chaos. They really are making these playoffs interesting, and really kind of is the reason why we love MLS so much, because in the playoffs anything can happen. And especially with the single elimination, they're proving everybody that anything can happen, where if you have a game where you're just more up for it compared to your opposition, then yeah, you can definitely get a victory, and you can pull off an upset. And that's exactly what RSL is going to do, and I'm very excited to see if they can continue that Cinderella run against the Portland Timbers. But if you're Sporting KC, yeah, this is just a continuation of the legacy of failure that this team has had. Well, I wouldn't say a legacy of failure, because they did win an MLS Cup back in 2013, but when you look at these last couple of years, and ever since they won that cup, it has been nothing short of disappointment. And this, I think, is got to be the most disappointing playoff defeat out of all of them, because when you're playing against a team that basically didn't really have their best, well, at least missing one of their best starter, and really a team that, with all the attacking power that they had, like, I really think that MLS Cup was basically lining perfectly for the Sporting KC team, because once they beat this RSL team, they play against a Portland Timbers team that, without Darren Asprilla and Sebastian Blanco, I really think they could really stifle them, and especially they definitely has a chance to get revenge for what happened back in 2018. But yeah, right now, well, unfortunately, that's just not meant to be, and in some way, I guess maybe they kind of was a little bit overconfident coming into this game, but again, that being said, you got to give a lot of credit to what RSL done in this game, and like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see what they're going to do against the Portland Timbers in the Western Conference Final. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this game, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.